Greetings and welcome back. It's your host, Gabe Morales. Over the last few months, I've covered the California Aryan Brotherhood in depth, including doing a roll call and coverage of the most influential Aryan Brotherhood members since its inception in January 1967. I also recently did an episode on the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas and Aryan Circles, Origins and Evolution. During several recent conversations, it appears to me that when many people think of gangs, they often overlook the Aryan gangs or think that Nazis stomping around in boots, giving Sieg Heil salutes, or guys running around at night in white sheets conducting KKK cross burnings was just a thing of the past. It is true, those two groups are former shells of themselves. But there are thousands of hate group and prison gang members still around, creating chaos in our prisons and out in society. The Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center often track these groups if you want to know more. While some viewers on this channel have criticized those two organizations, I have reviewed their materials in the past and feel they provide a decent overview, even though I may occasionally disagree with them. Most of the people in those two organizations are academics who studied them behind their computers and did some interviews, maybe some studies, maybe even wrote some papers on them. I saw the practical side. I put handcuffs on members of some of these security threat groups, including high-ranking members, and interviewed them in custody and directly observed their behaviors, and also wrote official reports on them. So sometimes I have a different view. I guess you could call me a pracademic. Like I said, I previously covered some of the Aryan groups on this channel, but in this episode, I will cover more Aryan groups and events that I missed previously by going across the United States, state by state, and give a few updates on them that will be included in my book, The History of the Aryan Brotherhood. The 1488 is a racist prison gang based primarily in Alaska, although it has a small presence in other states. Its primary symbol consists of a swastika intertwined with an iron cross, with the 1488 and SS lightning bolts inside the iron cross. 14 comes from the 14 words. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. This is a slogan that was written by David Lane of the Silent Brotherhood and Aryan nations. Depending on who you talk to, the 88 stands for Heil Hitler, or the eighth letter of the alphabet twice, HH, or the 88 Precepts, also written by David Lane. You could look those up on the internet in case you're interested. In July 2023, a federal judge in Anchorage sentenced two members of the 1488s to life sentences. Both men were part of a group of 5 affiliates convicted in May 2023 for numerous crimes stemming from a string of assaults in 2017 that culminated with the kidnapping, torture, and murder of Michael Stanton, a member who had fallen out of favor and was one of the founders of the group. Filthy Fuhrer, yes, that's his legal name, was the first one to be sentenced. Fuhrer, originally named Timothy Lobdell, headed the 1488s and authorized members outside of prison to brutalize several other members who were in bad standings. At the time, Fuhrer was serving a lengthy sentence for the attempted murder of an Alaskan state trooper 2 decades earlier. The Aryan Family is a prison gang with roots that goes back to the days of the 1970s Lifers Club in Washington State. They were blessed around 1994 by an Aryan Brotherhood member named Kenny Tuka, who was considered to be the leader of the Lifers Club. Ever since that time, they've had several leadership changes, and they were very disruptive in Washington, D.C., the federal system, as well as the King County Jail, where I worked for almost 25 years at the Seattle and Kent facilities. In March 2023, 27 people were indicted by a grand jury for drug trafficking, many with ties to the Aryan family. More than 225 gun and firearms parts were also taken off the streets. The alleged leader of the drug trafficking organization was Jesse James Bailey, who was married to a former Washington DOC corrections officer. Among others charged was Anthony Escoto, a well-known Peckerwood from King County, who was also an AF member. In July 2024, 2 men who were named in the 2023 indictment were sentenced to federal prison. Ronaldo Macomb was sentenced to 13 years. Isaac Cervantes, an associate and major drug dealer from Phoenix, was sentenced to 9 years in prison for transporting fentanyl, methamphetamine, and other drugs from Arizona to Washington State. The Aryan Knights prison gang was formed in the mid-1990s to late 1990s at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution by an offender named Will Dunn and soon spread to the streets. They will often use AK or 111 for the letters corresponding to the alphabet. In 2021, Harlan Hale, described as the leader of the group, was sentenced to life in prison for his role in trafficking drugs behind bars and using violence to collect unpaid drug debts. In 2024, James Ramsey, former overall leader of the gang from 2015 to 2016, pled guilty to one count of conspiracy to participate in racketeering, also known as the RICO, and one count of assault with a dangerous weapon. 8 others were charged with Hale and Ramsey in the RICO case. On March 24, 2024, an Aryan Knight member named Skylar Mead escaped from the custody of Idaho DOC officers when he was being transferred out to a local hospital. Once there, he was assisted by fellow Aryan Knights member Nicholas Umfanor, who wounded 2 corrections officers during a brazen ambush. They also were expected of committing 2 murders while they were on the run. They were eventually captured to stand trial for their new offenses. You can find more information about the Aryan family, European kindred, and Aryan Knights in my 2-part series on Northwest Aryan gangs. Like I said, I've relayed a lot of information already about the California Aryan Brotherhood in previous videos on this channel. But a quick update. By June 2024, federal authorities linked at least 15 homicides in California to the Aryan Brotherhood, including a notorious gangster who was already serving double life. Longtime California prisoner John Stinson, who has been either in California Department of Corrections or jail custody since 1981, was charged with 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, as well as fraud. Stinson was a past California Commission member, but had claimed to have distanced himself from the group. But he never debriefed, so officials still considered him to be active, and he still had a lot of respect from many of the brothers. The Aryan Warriors were started in 1973, according to retired Nevada DOC Sergeant and author Bill Valentine. A tattoo of a Viking's horned helmet with the letters AW was chosen as the official symbol, and the leaders have since been called horn holders. One Nevada prisoner who was schooled by older convicts in the ways of the AW was Troy Kell. Kell was convicted of murder at the age of 18 and was housed in Nevada, but due to behavior problems, he was later shipped out to Utah DOC. You may have seen him, as the gruesome murder he committed was captured on prison security closed-circuit TV and was shown in a documentary called Gladiator Days, Anatomy of a Prison Murder.
Mingle with foreigners, in a sense, outsiders of their racial groups. Eventually, they've destroyed themselves.
As we delved into the case, we found out fairly quickly that Troy Kell had very strong beliefs as a white supremacist. The white supremacist group, or gang, if you want to call them that, is significant, and probably the most significant single group or gang we've got in our prison.
Prison has a tendency to, force an individual, someone who's impressionable as I was, young, to identify with a group and or a certain ideology. And I found that in the white separatist movement. And I felt like I belonged. I felt like I climbed a mountain, reached, got to the top, planted the flag, and I was home.
It's born out of fear. Fear of knowing another race, keeping your distance from another race.
With any kind of white guy that stands up for, his people, he's looked upon as some type of racist race hater. And that's not the case. In the majority of the people.
Do you hate Jews?
No, it doesn't concern me at all. I mean, maybe people's actions is what I don't like. I mean, they might choose to do certain things, but there's more, white people that need adjusting than anybody else.
In preparation for the case, and primarily the sentencing portion of the case, I went out to Nevada, where, of course, Troy was housed as an inmate for years. During the course of that, we actually found a letter, and it was a letter that Troy Kell had written probably 10 days to 2 weeks prior to the homicide here in Utah. And he was writing some of his white supremacist inmate friends in Nevada. And in that letter, he talked about and actually prophesied that he was going to commit this crime in Utah. He talked about how in his terms, a nappy-headed monkey had been running his mouth, and this nappy-headed monkey was going to get his, and there's going to be pain and suffering involved in that.
It was a power trip to begin with, but it had racial overtones to it. The race issue was used to justify the power trips, controlling the action, wanting to control the TV, the ice bucket, where this person lived with who, things like that that happen in prison.
It becomes racial only as a secondary consequence. It starts off from greed and profit and control, like anything else.
I had a confrontation with him verbally that derived from two other people's fight. That kind of, flowed over to me getting involved with him. And it was kind of agreed between me and him that we were going to take care of it. That any chance that either one of us got, that we were going to deal with the situation. I prepared. I got a knife and I got a handcuff key. We were restrained. We were going down to medical.
They forged his name, requesting that my brother go to the infirmary.
I filled out what they call a medical request slip for Blackman to get him out of his cell on a particular day.
The guard came to my brother's cell and said, "Hey, you ready to go?" And my brother's, "What do you mean? Ready to go where?" They
came over my intercom in my cell and said, "Daniels, you're going to medical today." And I knew it was the day.
He was sporting his colors, flying his bandana.
When he got to the infirmary, Troy Kell and Eric Daniels and another inmate were there also.
The next thing I know, Blackman's running towards me.
And it was on.
He's trying to stab him. Stab him in the back.
I knew that it was a strong hit because of the color of the blood, and it's dark, and that's a sign that where you got an artery or a vein or something like that.
You need to SWAT down here, full gear.
Steven.
Hey, officer, go ahead, come back again.
Steven. This Johnny. Yeah. 1 and 2. Yeah,
SWAT, full gear in Cedar 3 now.
Section 3 here.
Rack in, everybody, rack in, everybody.
Rack in, rack in, rack in.
Why did you stab him so many times?
All I can explain really is that he kept moving. I just stabbed the shit out of him, until he didn't move anymore. And I ended up stabbing the man to death.
The shank went into 10.
Afterwards, I felt, man, goddamn, why'd you kind of make me do that? Or I didn't weigh in the fact that he was a father or a brother or a son to anybody. I didn't see him as a human person.
The prison guards saw this happening. There were civilians there. The guard ushers them out. They then go and get into full riot gear. My brother's still being stabbed.
We need medical help in Cedar. We need medical help immediately in Cedar.
They come in, and then they grab Kell and this other guy. Well, my brother's dying by then. It's just too much time has elapsed.
I will tell you that I've never seen anything like that in my life. I got more and more horrified the more I watched it, as I had to watch it over and over again to prepare for the case. Actually, to the point where we had to count the number of stab wounds. After watching the videotape initially, several nights I had problems sleeping. From a prosecutor's standpoint, to have a videotape of the crime is kind of unheard of.
My father and I went to Utah for one reason only, and that was to try to make a change. We wanted to talk to the prison officials. We wanted someone to tell us that they were going to change the procedures. That's why we went, to ensure that what happened to my brother didn't happen to another inmate.
Troy Kell did take the stand. He was very articulate, very intelligent, and was able to bring up emotion, which at the time appeared to be genuine. And in fact, he addressed the victim's family, who happened to be in the audience from Arkansas.
From the witness stand, he asked if, after he finished testifying, if he could talk to me and my dad one-on-one and sit down. And he said, sit down as men and talk.
Told them how sorry he was that he had killed their son, their brother, and he actually was crying at the time, which I've got to say, as a prosecutor, it was one of the more remarkable events I had seen from a defendant testifying on the stand.
There were, like, I think 8 women on the jury and 4 men, and I kind of looked over it when he was testifying, and some of the women were crying.
Fortunately for us, before Troy Kell had taken the stand to testify, he had told 2 of the guards that were transporting him to and from the courtroom, watch this, I'm going to win an Academy Award.
In other words, he was going to get on the witness stand and just lie.
Yeah, I was fighting for my life. I did what I had to do to try to save my life. But I didn't, the emotional part of it was genuine to his family. Because the way I live my life, eventually somebody, if the state doesn't kill me, eventually someone will get me, you know, because of the way I live my life. It's just a part of it. And my family accepts that. And I accept that. But the thing is I would want somebody to show my father the respect that I think he's got coming. You know, that's all I can really say about that.
So, if I understand you right, you're saying that you meant what you said to that father. That wasn't an act. That wasn't fake.
No, I meant what I said to him. I mean, they want to downplay it because they're fighting to win the case.
I put the guards back on the stand, and the guards ended up testifying as to this conversation they had had with Troy Kell about winning an Academy Award.
I was subpoenaed to testify at that trial, although I wish he would have done things a lot differently. I don't know if I can, I can't pass judgment upon him for the things he's done. I don't agree with the things he's done. I don't like the things he has done. But I cannot judge him for the things he has done because I don't live like he lives, and I don't walk in his shoes, and I don't feel what he feels.
If society has once sentenced him, convicted him to life without possibility of parole for a murder, and he's chosen then in a very brutal fashion to take another life while incarcerated, what other option is available? And realistically, the chance that Troy Kell in the future could commit another homicide while in prison. And I think that was probably the most weighty thing that ended up in the jurors voting for the death penalty.
I don't think the death penalty works. You know, there are people who's on death row, and you know, we just recently had some. McVeigh was put to death. Does that stop terrorism? I don't think it will. Does it stop people from murdering and killing and raping? I don't think it will. You know, some of my coworkers say, hey, well, he won't do it again. Well, sure, but that doesn't deter others.
Troy Kell remains on Utah's death row. In August 2023, 3 prisoners, including a white supremacist gang leader, were killed and 9 other inmates were injured in a prison disturbance at the Ely facility. This facility is considered to be the Pelican Bay of Nevada.
Ted, 8 News Now is learning 3 people are dead, several others hurt after an altercation at Ely State Prison. 9 people were taken to a nearby hospital for treatment. Our 8 News Now investigators have learned there are concerns about retaliation, as this appears to have been a feud between 2 rival gangs. Now, we do know no officers were hurt, but an investigation is underway.
In a media statement, Nevada DOC identified the dead as Zachariah Luss and Connor Brown, with Anthony Williams later being identified as the 3rd person who was killed. The rumor is, and I don't like speaking in rumors, but this comes from multiple sources and backed up by major media sources, is that the AWs were killed by the Sureños, also sometimes called Southsiders, over disrespect issues. Evidently, former Aryan Warrior leader Christopher Rebelwood Lippincott, who I believe has a DOB of 9/15/79, gave up power when he dropped out, as well as his brother, and he transferred out of state to the East Coast, but then paroled back to Nevada and hit the streets. I'm not sure why he dropped out, but part of it might have been his background. Word is Rebel started his gang life out as being a Crip, and then became a Sanchuco, Las Vegas Hispanic street gang member before becoming AW in prison. This usually would be frowned upon by other Aryans. Before he dropped out, I heard that Rebelwood had appointed a new AW as number 1, and that was Anthony Muggsy Williams, which did not go over well since Rebelwood was a dropout and shouldn't have been in charge of appointing a successor. That usually would be a group decision. As I stated, Williams was killed in the disturbance at Ely. Both Williams and another AW, Tariq Torque Goycochea, were charged in a 2019 indictment of murder with conspiracy to commit murder in former AW Andrew Thurgood's death while they're in prison. The AW drama goes way back, but I believe AW Richard, aka Richie Rich Manning, gave orders for Jonathan J.T. Turner to be hit on April 2nd, 2019 for being in bad standings, even though he was respected by many former AWs and associates. Zachariah Little Dog Luss was also named in the case with Manning for conspiracy to commit murder. Apparently, Turner died later that year in a car wreck. But back to Rebelwood. Evidently, in July 2024, he fought a non-affiliated mixed martial arts fighter named Victor Vic the Brick Martinez in Las Vegas, supposedly over disrespect issues. Evidently, Rebelwood was dating Manning's sister on the streets for many years. As stated earlier, Richie Manning was the A-dub of rank, and some say that's where the disrespect by Martinez was. Others say it was due to a drug debt owed by the A-dubs to the Sureños. Either way, Rebelwood ended up shooting Martinez in the leg and face, and Vic the Brick, in turn, took the weapon away and killed Rebel Wood with multiple gunshots. Martinez was taken to the hospital, and word is that some AWs tried to finish him off, but Martinez was protected by his Sereno family and friends, even though he eventually succumbed to his injuries. Word of this incident reached the penitentiary, and the Serenos ended up taking off on the A-dubs on August 1st, 2024. Now, it is my understanding that Zachariah Little Dog Luss was the number 2, or street captain. Also killed was AW prospect Connor Brown, who was allegedly celled up with a non-affiliated inmate named Eric Janich. Evidently, as Brown got hit bad and eventually was killed by the Southsiders, Janich defended his cellie and also got hit and had to be life-flighted out. 2 other whites were said to have been seriously wounded besides the 3 individuals killed, with 6 Southsiders wounded. Now, it appears to me that Nevada DOC's chalked the riot up to the previous drug debt that I mentioned and don't want to consider it ties to the Lippincott fight. I guess only time will tell what the real reason was. But due to this serious incident, most prisons in Nevada were put on lockdown. Post-incident, Ely State Prison shipped out most of the Serenos and redesignated Ely as a level 2, level 3 yard. All security threat group members identified as being active at Ely were sent to High Desert State Prison. Approximately 2,000 inmates were transferred around the state to accommodate current management of the Serenos, and reportedly there are multiple ripple effect incidents since the initial Ely disturbance and post-mass movements. Nevada DOC line staff and the nearby community of Indian Springs, located just outside the prison, have some concerns of having so many high-security prisoners suddenly dumped on them. I knew right after this happened that this was a major incident. In fact, I even stated to some people that this could possibly be the shoe war incident for Nevada DOC that could greatly impact it for decades to come. If you don't know what the shoe war incident was at San Quentin in September 1968, you can look that up, or you could check out some of my videos on that. You can hear more details about the Aryan Warriors on Vegas Profile Stories if you're interested. I'm going to stop right there, but come back for part 2 shortly. Hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new. As always, feel free to put your respectful feedback in the comments section. Now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians.